what behaviors reward ultimately affects your culture, right? If you are rewarding heroes, lone wolves that go off and just do things on their own, and that's what will become the heralded behaviors. But if you're rewarding teamwork and collaboration and folks that find ways to help other people, then that's the behaviors that end up ascending. So I think just be really thoughtful about what you reward and who you reward.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Business is Human. It is almost the weekend today when we're recording this. I'm very, very excited. I know Andrei is excited as well. And we have an awesome guest today, Todd Olson, CEO and founder of Pendo. Todd, how you doing, man?
I'm great. Great to be here.
It's good to have you here, man. And, one of the things that I thought was fascinating, here we are, a lot of the CEOs, founders that we bring on the shows, a big thing that we're talking a lot about is it's different between your company being, your existing employee base being remote and building a remote company in terms of new people starting versus a bunch of existing people continuing to work together. And one of the things that I thought was fascinating that you told me before the episode is that almost half of your employees have never met in person. And I think a lot of us now are thinking a lot about how do we foster a lot of the bonds and just getting to know each other, sense of belonging, collaboration that are typically much, much easier when we're all in an office together.
Yeah. Well, look, it's a hot topic, and I'll also caveat all my expressions is I'm a little more controversial amongst my peers in that we are returning to an office. I am not like declaring remote first or whatever people are declaring. So like I'm not in that camp. I've said it many times. I'm not going to change our culture in the middle of a global pandemic. Like make that sort of decision. Like, after the pandemic, we're vaccinated, et cetera. We're able to go back. Maybe we'll make some adjustments, but we have no desire to make any real adjustments today. Now, having said that, we have to deal with the reality of the fact that we're not back in an office mostly. Now, it also is probably notable to say that we're North Carolina. Our offices are able to be open. Many of our tech peers are in California, where they're not able to be open. We have a California office that is also closed. But I'm in the office every day. I've been in the office every day since July. So I think the challenge is that relationships, bonds are formed in small group settings or even one-on-one meetings. And when you're having a one-on-one over Zoom, it just feels exactly the same as any other Zoom meeting, right? So we're trying to find more and more ways to be creative of creating that personal connection. So our kickoff is next week. It's a year since, of course, our last kickoff where we all were in person. That's kind of like the last thing we did as a company pre-pandemic. We all remember, we all went to Charlotte. It was an awesome event. We were about 400 people then, a little under 400 people. Now we're over 500 people. And we're trying to create that small group settings. And one thing we did last year that we're doing virtually this year is we're giving people tasks. We're asking people to work together on something. So our tasks have been like product challenges, like use our product to discover this or answer this question or build this. So it is nice, versus like, hey, just grab a coffee with someone and ask them about their life. That's not a way you get to know someone. You get to know someone by working together to solve something, by trying to talk through a problem or brainstorm. And that's what we're trying to create. We're going to try to create, of course, cross-office, cross-role. I think that's the other big piece of it that I hear a lot about the pandemic is, I think that's part of our magic is that folks in engineering are really, really close to folks in sales or customer success, or they have really good bonds. And we're trying to continue to foster those connections. We win when the whole company wins. It's not like our sales team or our customer facing team is just doing it on their own. Engineering's helping, products helping, user experience is helping. So I think it's really trying to foster that cross-functional collaboration.
So many things you said there resonate with me. I always talk to friends about when I go traveling and I spend like a weekend, like you do like a weekend trip with a bunch of friends. You get so much closer because you're doing things like the dishes and like taking out the trash and cleaning up and all these like little tasks that really kind of create formative bonds versus sitting across the dinner table from somebody at a restaurant. And so the idea that the same dynamic exists at work makes total sense to me. The thing that I thought was interesting that you said is I mean, look, like the company wins when everybody wins, but a lot of times, there's tension in sales and marketing. There's tension in product and sales. There's all of these tensions that just exist for a number of reasons. And I mean, I would be curious how you think about, I guess, kind of those walls that can form pretty easily, whether you like it or not, in a culture of really trying to propagate everybody winning.
This is something that I think is very core to who we are as a company. It's one of the things that it's been this way since the very beginning. And we have this core value of maniacal focus on the customer. And we are truly maniacal about it. And we will drop everything, even within engineering, sprint, roadmap, et cetera, to pivot to a customer issue if a customer issue arises. We're completely unafraid of it. And I think that propagates. I mean, our engineers talk to customers regularly. We interview and screen for that. If you can't, I'm a former engineer myself. I've worked with plenty of folks that are amazing that don't want to talk to other humans, and that those people are great. They're just not great for Pendo. We want people that can talk to humans, that can talk to the rest of the company, that are focused always on the customer. That's why we're here. We're not here just to like build cool things for ourselves. We're here to build cool things for our customers. And I think that alignment is key. One of the things that has been pretty cool in our culture that we've done historically is, of course, when we announce deals over Slack, like there are usually paragraphs of the team that it took to win this deal. And everyone's called out, everyone's added, so like people are getting notified. And that's a pretty big part of our culture. The other big thing is when we were live in person, we would, at the end of a quarter, when a sales rep was going to hit the gong to close the deal and celebrate, they would bring someone that helped them win the deal to hit the gong on their behalf, which kind of creates this like team bonding. And that's carried over. We do at the end of the quarter, our fiscal year ended last 2 weeks ago, I guess, of January 31st. We do a daily spin the wheel for people that close the deal to prize. And you have a choice wherever it lands on the wheel. You can either get whatever kind of gift we have. It's usually a gift card, or sometimes it's like a TV or something like that. You can either accept it or pass it on to someone that helped you in the deal. And I think 90% of the people that won gifts at the end of our quarter passed it on, or something to that effect. The numbers are like staggering. Like most people passed it on. And look, no one's like judging anyone that doesn't. Maybe you want that TV. I don't know. But it just creates this whole culture where everyone recognizes that they're part of a bigger team to win. It takes all of us.
That's awesome. I'm just thinking of like the New England Patriots, where Tom Brady's never like, he's like always talking about how the team did their job. And those players are coached to do that. They're coached and drilled in that mindset. And in the corporate setting, frankly, I'm not sure if there's as much of a intentionality around building that mindset. And doing it in a public fashion. So, man, that is such a cool idea. I love that you guys do that.
What behaviors reward ultimately affects your culture, right? If you are rewarding heroes that are lone wolves that go off and just do things on their own, and that's what will become the heralded behaviors. But if you're rewarding teamwork and collaboration and folks that find ways to help other people, then that's the behaviors that end up ascending. So I think it just to be really thoughtful about what you reward and who you reward. Everyone knows when you reward the person that does things by themselves. People are smart. They figure it out fast. We actually give out awards at every quarter based on our core values. And to get those awards, you have to be voted by your peers. So peers vote throughout the quarter for who's living their core values. We have 7 of them, and then we give it an award per value. And that's a way to create this whole dynamic where you're not going to win anything unless your peers see you doing it. And there's a story around it, and there's conversations, and so we celebrate it. We celebrate our values, and those are actually the only real awards we give out.
I love that. So switching gears a little bit, as far as Pendo goes, maybe just quickly give the 30-second elevator, and then I want to dive into some kind of themes that you guys are really at the forefront of in just general go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, look, very simply, Pendo helps accelerate the adoption of software, and and that's for software that's either customer facing or even employee facing. If you think about it, software powers our world, so you want to make sure that people understand it and people can use it effectively. We do this with 2 primary mechanisms. One, we install the software and we capture all the behavior, so we have rich product insights. 2, we complement that with the ability to educate users in app. It's everything from onboarding, new feature announcements, you name it.
It's so important too. I mean, every company is thinking about protecting the base, churn, retention. And frankly, so much of that is really just, are people using the product? Are they having a good initial onboarding experience, which is critical for them to continue to use the product? Moreover, I think every single company is also, just in terms of the go-to-market motion, more and more companies, at least anecdotally, what I see, and you probably have a better pulse on this, is things are becoming more product-led. The days of, hey, you need to talk to a SE and a sales rep to get your hands on anything because we really want to have ball control because we're afraid everything's going to break in order to actually win business is going away. And frankly, people don't want that experience. They want an on-demand self-serve experience for them to kind of explore and understand whether something can help them achieve their goals. And so one of the questions I had for you is, what are the best companies doing? What are the best companies that are leaning into this whole product-led movement? What are things that they're doing that might not be obvious to people that are not so ingrained into this kind of shift in the way people experience software?
Well, best is a dangerous word. So let's unpack that. And because when people think product-led growth, they immediately gravitate towards Dropbox and 3 or 4 ridiculous brands and say they're the best at product-led growth, and they probably are. But there's also a natural virality to collaboration software that not every company has the luxury of having. A lot of our customers, or a lot of companies I talk to, are I don't know, they're creating software for manufacturing processes. How do you be the best at being product led for a manufacturing process?
Yeah.
What does it even mean? You're never going to be as good as Slack. Let's just be realistic. So I guess I think of it more on a kind of a continuum. And of course, the one far end of that continuum or spectrum, whatever word you prefer, is kind of this collaboration software, the Slacks, the Zooms, the Dropboxes that can have completely human-free processes. It's self-service, sign up, onboarding, and then even transacting, which, putting in payments, et cetera. Now, what's interesting, I've done research here, one of the key aspects of actually being able to take dollars online too is what level of commitment you're asking to up front. So there's a natural tendency for the companies to be good at this to have smaller asks. Hence, it's have to be monthly billing, which by the way, most of us in the SaaS world hate. So we don't do monthly billing. And guess what? When you go to put in your credit card, you're committing to a year up front, that will be your drop off. You could have the best product in the world. You could have the best onboarding in the world, but you're asking someone to sign up for a commitment for a year. Even the iPhone now you can rent on a monthly basis because you of course you are signing contracts. Be careful, read the fine print. But yeah, the point is that the level of commitment you're asking does greatly determine your ability to be product led. But look, if I go back and say, what are the best companies doing? Is the best companies are accepting and realizing, embracing maybe even the fact that, look, your customers are going to want to try this thing before they buy it. And you can't hide behind some amazing marketing slicker or some incredibly charismatic sales human that just shoves something on it. The world doesn't want shelfware. We have been bitten by this many, many times over. How many times we buy something and we're like, why the hell do we have that thing? We bought lots of it. No. Like, we're done with shelfware. We hate it. So don't try to don't try to fight that trend. Try to embrace. Okay, so how do we let people try our software in unique ways? So I think having a really open and completely ungated free trial is a really powerful way. Like, that's being completely unafraid that your product is going to be good, right? Which is something that I always advocate for. Now, in some industries, your customers won't give you their data, so they can't try it. Like, there's a regulatory, there's compliance. So how do you be product-led great in there? We'll give them an amazing experience where they can feel what your product's like with the real product, with dummy data or things like that. That's another example of how you can be product-led. And I think you may need sales humans to close a deal, but I think great companies don't rely on their sales humans and don't try to I heard this term like last week from someone, like arm twist. Like, no one wants to be arm twisted. I think we all know what that means. The great product-led companies realize the product itself is doing the selling. The sales humans may need to get through a procurement process, which sadly some companies make very arduous. But that's kind of how I think best is. Best is embracing the fact that we're going to let our products do the talking.
Yeah, I think you're right. Even I've seen it where it's like the continuum of like idea. I think a lot of like sales leadership, they want to maintain ball control. Like, we don't want to just let somebody into this like shit show, are recognizing that, it's just becoming a standard of what people expect. They want to touch something before they make a big investment in some form or fashion. And you need to kind of embrace it, that the times are changing.
Hey, Andrei from Troops here. Are you using Slack or Microsoft Teams at your organization? If you are, then you have to be delivering the right information to the right people at the right time, from your CRM, marketing automation, support, sales engagement, and customer success systems in an actionable way with Troops.ai. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to what our customers are saying about their experience using Troops.
I think it's made me better at coaching, but I think it's also allowed me to take a step back and get out of the details of a deal and actually look at our forecasting and pipeline and think about our sales org from a business standpoint, as opposed to before I was very much in the weeds of every deal, needing to know the details of every deal.
Fun short story here is that we had a new sales leader come in a few years ago, and of course we were doing trials as part of any Pendo cycle. And a classic sales leader comes in new, and you're like, well, we want to go make these go faster. We want to shrink the sales cycle so we can drive more velocity. Let's incentivize sales reps to not do a trial. So we'll pay them a higher commission, a spiff, so to speak, on it. And we tried it, and it did shrink the sales cycle, but it also decreased our win rate by a significant amount, so almost half. So the change in cycle delivered no improvements because the win rate was so worse. So we actually now did the opposite. We actually encourage reps to put people into a trial. And yeah, it could take longer, but we win, I think, over 2/3 of the time if someone uses our product. So yeah, use it. It's great. That's the moral of the story. When you have a great product, you actually want to encourage people to try it. And because it's a better business outcome.
Todd, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And, I think something that I think about when you talk about these ungated trials is how the engagement model actually changes in terms of how the sales rep should be communicating or what they should be doing during that process, how they're monitoring success, and how you're communicating from a marketing perspective. So I'm curious to get any insight you have on what's working and what's not as far as those strategies and tactics.
The other piece is we're all, of course, measuring. If someone's using our product during a trial, we're measuring it. And guess what? Our salespeople are watching. and not in a creepy way, of course, but in a useful way. So when they get on the phone with a customer, they can say, look, I noticed you spent 3 days in it. I know that you use these given features. How was the experience? Was it what you expected? Is there anything I can use help on? So it makes the conversation with the customers actually more efficient, and customers like that experience. Rather than getting on the phone, like, what do you think? Or we can say, look, we know this is what you're doing. What can I do? Like, we shrink these phone calls because there's a quality of information, right? So I think that to me is best practice. Like going into something, having as much data as you can, being as informed you can, it actually leads to a better customer experience. So that's what I think is the key here. The customers like that.
It's funny because what you're describing is almost like it's the sales conversations would shift similar to the conversation that a CS rep would have during like a QBR or a check-in, right? And I'm fascinated by the way that those two roles are going to start converging as this product-led wave continues. Just something that I think about.
We don't like salespeople, think about it, when they call us up, when they know nothing about us. I mean, hell, how many times I get SDR emails all the time, call me Mark. Like it's not even my middle name. So like, who the hell's Mark? So like, yes, no, I'm not going to respond to your email if you don't know my name. So there's a really quick thing not to do. What we want out of a sales conversation is someone that really understands us, that has empathy for us, that's smart, that's educating us and making us better. We like those things. Those are actually cool conversations. It doesn't feel like a sales conversation. It feels like I'm learning from someone. So the more we can empower our sales humans with information and context so that to make it higher quality conversations, so I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, the better it is. Like, one, you don't know my name, you don't know my problems. I mean, most people don't know my role when they're emailing me randomly, which, by the way, is really fast if you Google.
It's funny when I get emails all the time of like people asking me if I'm interested in an opportunity at another company. I'm like, well, I have my own company, so no. You know what I mean? I don't want an AE job at some thing. It's crazy. One thing I just encourage listeners to do, is I understand though, like if someone's 23, 24, 25 years old, they've never been in an exec meeting, they don't have the context. And I think some of the best sales professionals, go-to-market professionals that I've seen is they're able to understand what is important and how to have an executive level conversation. And I do think that is a skill that a lot of organizations just completely miss preparing their team to have that empathy. It is annoying, but I also think it's more of like a call to arms for everybody out there who's leading a go-to-market organization. Hey, you need to educate your people on the fact that like the CEO is not picking, what tool you have on the website, or they don't care about these things. And you really need to understand like what the higher level business objectives are if you're going to try to approach that person.
And by the way, what you're saying has extra importance right now, right? Because we were talking to Jim Benton from Chorus, and he was saying that the number one thing sales reps should be thinking about today is how to engage with executives, since the CFO, the CEO is being involved in these buying decisions at I think it was above 50% higher rate than before, something of the sort. So definitely really important.
Yeah, you're right. There's competing interests here where people are being told to get to power and get higher in an organization, but you need to understand how and what's the strategy for doing it. And of course, I get questions sometimes from my sales team. Can you reach out to the CEO? Do you mind doing it? And sometimes we'll have the conversations like, well, imagine I'm getting this email from someone. What do you think I'm going to think if I read this? Like, what are the natural questions I'm going to have when I go through it? And we talk through and like, oh yeah, maybe that isn't the best next outreach. It's like, yeah, don't think so. Like, I would do this next. And then, there is a time and place where, of course, emailing a CEO or a CFO is completely appropriate. But the ask has to be one where I feel like I can do something. And I feel like you've done your homework. If you've I've talked to these people, I've done this work, we're stuck, that's okay. That's a reasonable email to send me. I will do something with that. But if it's random, if it's completely cold, if you haven't really researched who in our organization owns something, it's just not is constructive. So yeah, you're right. There are real skills here. I think the whole role playing thing is underrated in business in general. I know, or maybe everyone's doing it. I don't know, but like I'm a big fan of like we try to prep for any major meeting. We talk about what if the person says this, how are we going to respond? Like going through a lot of objection handling. It could be for a big partnership, could be for an investor meeting, could be frankly for anything important.
Yep.
The more you prep, the more comfortable you'll be in those scenario and more prepared for what comes.
I have one last question for you, because to me, a theme, and I've heard you talk about this otherwise, is you seem like a pretty hands-on CEO, like doing role plays with somebody that's sending you an email, that like asking you to send an email. That's something that I think is awesome. And I do think there's kind of schools of thought that I've just witnessed where people are like, hey, I'm a CEO founder. I hire like an amazing exec team and I just let them do their thing and get out of their way. And we've had a lot of founders on this show where they're like, no, I'm kind of in the weeds of like what I need to be for the most important parts of the business that we need to figure out. How do you strike that balance? What are your thoughts and beliefs around how hands-on a CEO should be and when?
Well, look, there's no perfect answer. It's a bit of an art form, but yeah, look, first of all, I hire amazing people. Like my direct reports, my leadership team is wow. Like they push and impress me all the time. So the last thing I want to do is have my behavior feel like it disempowers a great executive, because it basically they'll quit. So that's one of the lines I know not to cross. And having said that, part of my job also is to coach and help the company achieve its objectives. And if I feel like we aren't going to achieve a certain objective or hit something, yeah, I'm going to lean into it and can be completely unafraid to do so. And it changes all the time. It could be helping our product team get the right roadmap in place. It may mean me doing constant meetings to get to the point where we feel good about it. It may be helping close deals, personally, at the end of a quarter. It may be helping get through a more challenging situation, but sometimes you need to lead by example. Leading by example is jumping in and doing it yourself. And I like to think that, it's kind of like skip level one-on-ones. Like I'm not like skip leveling the entire business, but jumping in periodically and coaching someone and saying, oh, this is how I would handle it. Like they'll go tell other people, like, this is how I learned how to do it from Todd. And it helps. It propagates culture, it propagates ideas and best practices. So, I'm super hands-on. So I will jump into anything. I do interview nearly every person still, and we are probably going to adjust that shortly. I do one-on-ones with every person after the first 90 days. We talk about their onboarding process. We ask them about how their expectations are versus reality. I ask about lots of things there to kind of check in on culture and try to be connected. I also am trying in those situations create comfort with them having the ability to come out and talk to me. Like I don't want to be seen as someone that you can't like reach out to and say, hey, I'm really concerned around this, or hey, I see this. I mean, the reality is I would be arrogant to think I see everything that happens in this company. So I clearly don't. So I need people to have comfort and trust in me and safety that they can come to me and say, hey, I see this going on. And I just wanted to raise it to your attention. And look, my job is to take all that data in and help separate signals from noise. And I think that's really helped me scale this to date. And I think it's going to continue helping me. I still get periodic feedback that's like, that's really, really interesting. Yeah. And I usually go talk to an executive that works for me and said, like, I heard this. Go check it out and figure out what's going on here. Then they like do all the work and they figure it out and they probably fix the thing. But sometimes people will tell me things that they won't tell everyone else. So I think that's a big part of my role.
I like just the high level framework of, I don't want to do anything that disempowers an executive, but if there's an instance where we are at risk of achieving our goals and collective mission and an opportunity for me to coach and help us get there, that might be an opportune time to be a little bit more hands-on.
I was talking about our quarter. We closed out our fiscal year, and I got a lot more hands-on than I had in like years. I had not done that literally in 2 years, what I did 2 weeks ago. And it was needed. I don't know what to say. It's a gut instinct. I could tell by midweek that something was different, was necessary. And so I jumped in, and I was probably a little more aggressive than I normally would be. And but it honestly took a little bit of work for me, and everyone sort of rallied around. They saw the intensity and the focus, and like everyone else kind of came together, a lot of energy. It was pretty special, but that's part of my job. It's kind of like see those situations and know when to jump in.
Yeah, and when you were talking about this idea of being more hands-on, coaching impromptu, just randomly whenever you see things that are interesting, it's going back to what we were talking about with remote work and 50% of your employees not meeting each other, right? That's such an impactful moment. You join the company a month in, and you get a quick coaching from Todd, the CEO. That doesn't go unnoticed, that's for sure. And I was reading this blog, I think it was about Zapier, I think it was a week ago, and they were talking about some of the unscalable things that they did that actually helped them differentiate themselves as a company. And one of those was actually the customer, like they make everyone go through customer support, engineers, sales reps, product people, anyone. They have to start their tenure doing, I think it was 3 weeks to a month in customer support. So it's, just an example to bring up, but we are about to go into the lightning round, Todd, and really excited. This is usually an interesting part of the segment. Here's the first question for you. If you could live in any civilization throughout history, what would it be and why?
Oh, it's always now, present. I don't look backwards. So I like where I live right now, man. So it's perfect.
Awesome. What is your 10X project right now, and why are you so excited about it?
It's always about recruiting some special people, because the people that we recruit help drive 10X results. So there's a couple that we won't yet announce, but some pretty high-end people that we're working on recruiting right now.
That's great. I feel like every single executive that comes in always mentions recruiting before getting off the show. What's keeping you up at night right now, Todd?
Honestly, just prepping for the new year. So getting the new year kicked off. Our kickoff's next week. So just prepping for that, getting my story in my head perfect. So that's probably the biggest thing.
What is a common misconception about anything that pisses you off?
The first one is like somehow people think that people are born to be like good at raising capital or fundraising. It's a complete misconception. Like it is all about like having a great business. Like if you have a great business with great numbers, yes, of course you're going to be able to raise capital, but it's not like some like magic skill that all of a sudden you can convince people to give you, like there's comms, there's other things. I think it's complete bullshit. So that to me is a misconception I don't like.
What was the biggest inflection point in your business?
Look, I think the biggest inflection point was product market fit, still to this day. I mean, it's the one that everything started taking off from there. And so I'd say that was probably early 2015 is when we really started taking off.
That's awesome. Well, I have a feeling you guys are just getting started, which is pretty exciting. Todd, we're really grateful to have you on the show today. There's definitely a lot of takeaways for me personally, and hopefully for our listeners. I know Pendo is going to have a big year this year. And for people that want to follow along the journey, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, our website, pendo.io. So feel free to check that out. We'll have a lot of interesting announcements coming out in the next few months. Twitter, Pendo.io is our Twitter handle. And mine's Tolson, Tolson. So yeah, those are the big ones.
Right on. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next show.